Hello, my name is Steve Jackson, and in addition to being the NRail Vice President as well as the membership chair, I'm also a member of the Northern Virginia NTRAK Club. Um, so if you want to get more information about the club, a great resource is actually our website. We have NVNTRAK.org. I did want to preface everything that I'm going to say today by the fact that I'm just a member. And it's basically anything I say today is sort of my opinion, and it's based on my recollections since joining the club in 1997. I am a two-time past board member, so I have served twice on the board. We have a 7-member board that's responsible for running the business of the club. The rest of us get to have fun running trains, but those 7 make sure that we're paying the bills and taking care of all of our business. Board members can serve 2 consecutive terms. They're 2 years each, so 4 years total, and then they must come off of the board. So for somebody like me, I actually served 4 years, then was off the board for a while, and came back and has served 4 again. One of the things we do is we've got a tradition that comes and goes a little bit over the years, but departing board members are expected to join in with the emeritus salute. And in that salute, they put their right hand over their left shoulder and they say in front of everyone else, "I am not in charge." And that way it's clear to everyone that they're no longer in charge and they have passed the reins on to someone who's on the board, and that now they can go back to just running trains. We do publish a monthly newsletter. It's called the Call Board. We've been doing so since about 1992, so pretty soon after we started as a club. People ask where we're located. So it's Northern Virginia, but in general, really what we have is members who are all in the metropolitan area around Washington, D.C. Looking at a map, we've got NVNTRAK to the north of us. It's about 40 miles up to Baltimore, so the Baltimore area NTRAK. And then south of us is RANTRAK, the Richmond area NTRAK, and they're about 110 miles away. So between the 3 of us, we kind of cover everything along that middle part of the seaboard. And then there's a lot of shows where we actually will show up, 2 or 3 of us will show up in the same event as well. We do not have a clubhouse or a permanent location. We do have a post office box in Springfield, Virginia, but that's as close as we get to having really a permanent home. Although we have 2 sort of informal homes. The first one being the Trinity Christian School. So we have a monthly work session. We call that our back shop. And we have a monthly work session where people can bring in any kind of project they've got. Maybe they're working on a module, or they need some help with scenery, or perhaps they're trying to install a decoder in a locomotive, or some kind of boxcar is having trouble. They can bring equipment with them that they have needs for help on, and we as a club will all get together and help. And so that's held right now at a Trinity Christian School. One of our members is a teacher at that school. And then our second sort of home is Fairfax Station Railroad Museum. That's a location we've been setting up monthly there for several years now. So it's not really officially a home, but it's a place we go to really regularly, and so it's something that I think any of us who are members would sort of consider a home of sorts for the club. We have 85 members right now, approximately. That makes us the largest NRail super club. There may be larger clubs out there. If they're so, I don't know about them. We currently have a very active NTRAK and TTRAK divisions. So those are the 2 big groups that we have. And those 2 groups right now do about 45 shows a year. That's a lot. You sort of do the math, that's almost 1 every weekend. However, there are a lot of weekends where we have 2 or 3 shows. Our record that I'm aware of was one weekend we did 5 simultaneous shows, but that's pretty insane. Generally speaking, we try to keep it to 2 or 3 at a maximum. 3 is about as many as we can handle these days. Although I will actually say that right now as we speak, we have 3 shows going on this weekend. We've got folks up at the Altoona show in Pennsylvania for the large show there. We've got folks set up at the Bluemont Festival in Bluemont, Virginia, and we also have folks that are going to be setting up at the Fairfax Station Railroad Museum. So we're actually doing 3 this weekend right now. Historically, we have also, in addition to our NTRAK and TTRAK divisions, we've had the New River subdivision, and that was anchored by Matt Schaefer's Hawk Nest NTRAK modules. We also started the 1-track standard many years ago. This was something that was an offshoot of the New River subdivision. And it was an opportunity to try to run single track trains through in areas where there weren't multiple tracks. So just to add some realism to what we were doing. And so that is sort of akin to a Fremo N, except that it sits at the same height as NTRAK modules. It follows the same track standards. It's just that there's only one track required instead of more than one. We don't have as many active members doing one track these days. There's still a few modules floating around in the club, but we just don't have as many of those. And then we have also had an active NN3 group in the past, but that's sort of the same story. We've got a few people moved away, and so that kind of reduced the number of people who are interested in that. But those are things that could be easily fired back up if somebody showed back up and really wanted to take those by the reins. The club started with a meeting on a deck in Herndon, Virginia in 1991. Dennis Austin, Ed Braithwood, Tom Reed, and Chris Reddick got together at Chris's house and started talking about setting up a club. Ed is still a member of the club to this day, although he has retired and relocated to West Virginia. He has a very large layout in the basement of his new home there. And the first setup was in conjunction with the Rockville, Maryland Lions Club. We have continued to set up at Rockville every year since that first setup. A group of members went to the National Train Show in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania in 1993 and really got exposed at that point to the idea of very large layouts. And then they returned to Rail Fun, which was the N-Scale East Convention in Orlando, Florida in 1994. And after those two shows and the presence that we had there, we were asked to host the N-Scale East Convention in 1996. That one became called Runnin' Trains. And at that show, the Red Line route was born. And so that's something that you guys may not call it that, but most of the junctions you see these days at shows in NTRAK were generated from that first show in 96. That was the first time that those junctions showed up, sort of the square junctions. There had been a junction module at Valley Forge that was a little different design, but this was one that we sort of took that idea and redefined it in order to make it what we thought was more useful for that 96 convention. And what that red line route idea was is the red line, being that front line, could run around the entire layout from loop to loop to loop to loop. Prior to the 93 convention, everyone had basically had separate layouts. You'd have lots of separate layouts at a show, which is really cool to see, but you didn't get to run across the entire thing. But leveraging junction modules allowed us to. So that really was born in its current form in 96 at our Runnin' Trains convention. We also hosted the Capital Limited N-Scale East Convention in both 2004 as well as 2014. Those were both held in Chantilly, Virginia. Over the years, we have generated a few custom cars, both for our conventions as well as just for fun, usually with our logo on there. And you may see these sometimes in the secondhand market, so at least wanted to mention that if you see something with our club on there, that's what that's kind of about. In closing, we're a large club and we maintain a big tent philosophy. Basically, if it's N-scale, it'll fit in with us. We've embraced, like I said, we've got NN3, we've had the one track, we've got NTRAK and T-Track now. Sort of anything that'll run an N-scale train, we're excited to hear about it and learn and grow. And I look forward in coming ZoomTRAK sessions in learning more about your club and what you guys do.